This is Fantasy Football Today from CBSSports.com.
All right, everybody, week 2 is here. Time to play some Stardom and Situm. Welcome to this special edition of Fantasy Football Today for CBS Local Sports. I'm Adam Azer, Jamie Eisenberg, Dave Richard. Got a start and a sit at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Dave, kick it off with a quarterback to start.
I was scared to draft Michael Vick, but I'm happy to have him on my fantasy team. I actually do have him on one or two of my teams. I have a lot of fantasy teams. Vick's got a great home matchup against San Diego. The Chargers cross country after a Monday night game. The Eagles well rested and doing their thing with the no-huddle offense. Good opportunities for Vick. I don't think he's going to last the season, but he's healthy right now, so you might as well start him. I like him. He's a top 5 quarterback this week.
Jamie, I'm just shocked you're saying sit Ben Roethlisberger at Cincinnati after that stellar offensive performance from Pittsburgh last week.
I don't know how you can be shocked. I have all these great notes here on Ben Roethlisberger. The thing about Roethlisberger, you have to worry about no center. Marquise Pouncey out for the season. That's really going to hurt that entire offense. No running game to speak of at all. And by the way, the Cincinnati defense, they're pretty good. So I think Roethlisberger, he's going to have to throw because they're not going to rely on Isaac Redmond and Jonathan Dwyer in this game to help win the game. So Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, they're going to have to make plays. But we saw it, and you know, we harped on this coming into the year.
Yep.
What's this offense going to look like without Mike Wallace? What's it going to look like without Heath Miller? No running game. It just makes him too much of a risky starting option.
All right, now, you Eddie Lacy owners, we told you to sit him last week against San Francisco. Much better matchup this week against the Redskins. Start Eddie Lacy.
He's a start of the week. You know,
all right.
So we're going with Eddie Lacy. Great performance last week. The best thing that I liked about Eddie Lacy, no other tailback for the Packers touched the ball. So James Starks, Jonathan Franklin, out of the way. This is all the Eddie Lacy show, and he scored a touchdown in that game against the 49ers, which is a brutal defense. And what did the Redskins do last week? Oh, yeah, they let LaShawn McCoy run completely all over them. We're not going to see Eddie Lacy get 31 carries like LaShawn McCoy did, but Eddie Lacy, 14 to 20 carries, going with the 14 that he had last week, you know, with the chance to get close to 20. I think it's going to help Eddie Lacy be successful. He just got to hold on to the ball. Can't fumble.
Dave, I want to start Lamar Miller. Can I? Should I?
You could if you wanted to. It's your fantasy team, but I'm not starting him on my fantasy team.
All right, fine, I'll sit him.
Yeah, the matchup against Indianapolis almost has nothing to do with this. It's not that the Colts' defense is any good. It's just the matter of fact that Lamar Miller might not get the full slate of work that we initially thought. He's definitely going to split time with Daniel Thomas. And the Dolphins, they look like they're going to be a passing team. Ryan Tannehill threw the ball fairly well against the Browns last week. The matchup could dictate that he has to throw the ball again. I don't know if Lamar Miller is going to become this great passing down type of running back. I don't know what's going to happen with Lamar Miller in general. So for now, let's put him on the fantasy bench and go for another option.
Okay, they're going to be a passing team. I want to start Mike Wallace. Can I, Dave?
I think you should. And
All
I've got
right.
him in a couple of my teams, and I think I'm going to start him as well. Last week we said don't use him because Joe Hayden of the Cleveland Browns was going to be right on his hip. And sure enough, Mike Wallace had a tough game. But the Dolphins still took shots with him. They wanted to try and get him deep down the field. Tannehill can throw it that far. Again, they're going to be more of a passing team. I think Mike Wallace bounces back and has a real nice game this week.
A wide receiver to sit. It's crazy to think that Anquan Bolden after week 1 could be a sit. But first of all, I can't wait for this matchup Sunday night at Seattle. But they're just such a good defense. You're going to sit Anquan Bolden?
Yeah, Seattle at home, very difficult. We're going to probably see a lot of Richard Sherman on Anquan Bolden. So it just makes him risky. I understand keeping him in your lineup. Clearly the game that he had last week, he was Colin Kaepernick's guy, stepped into that Michael Crabtree role and really took off. So it's really going to have a good team, if not a great team, to sit Anquan Bolden. But I just think the matchup is tough. Last year we saw San Francisco go into Seattle and really struggle when they were at full strength, when they did have a guy like Crabtree. So Bolden kind of falls into the line of who do you have on the rest of your roster? You didn't draft him to be a starter, so why not, you know, wait at least another week, see how it shapes up. Steve Smith, though, did score against the Seattle Seahawks last week for the Panthers, so maybe Bolden does have a chance to get you in the end zone, but I think there are just some better options out there for you. I'd sit Bolden if you can.
Guys, let's talk about tight ends, one to start and one to sit. If you went out there and you picked up Julius Thomas, he's got the Giants on the road this week. Jamie's going to say you can go feel comfortable starting Julius Thomas.
Absolutely, and I would start him over Jordan Cameron, just to give you an example of a guy who played well last week versus a guy who also played well in Julius Thomas with the 2 touchdowns. Now, he's not going to do that again, but he does have the chance to score at least one. We saw Jason Witten, 8 catches for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Cowboys combined for 9 catches from their tight ends. Clearly, Julius Thomas is going to be a weapon for Peyton Manning, going to be a weapon for this Broncos, going to be a weapon for fantasy owners. So if you picked him up, start him this week, start him in the conference.
And give me a tight end to sit, Dave.
Well, Brandon Pettigrew in his matchup against Arizona. Yeah, and it's going to be a high-scoring game, but I don't think Brandon Pettigrew is going to be the one that you're going to want to count on here. There's a lot of other weapons in that Detroit offense that I'd rather see. Nate Burleson's one. Joik Bell's another one. So Pettigrew, to me, I think he's pretty much fallen off the fantasy radar. You could probably go in a different direction at tight end.
It's interesting you're saying that because obviously Jared Cook had a great game last week.
Yeah, Brandon Pettigrew is not Jared Cook, and he's not used the same way as Jared Cook.
He's not a rammer jammer like that.
No,
Jared Cook
No, he certainly is not. All right, guys, thanks a lot for the advice. If you want more advice from Dave and Jamie, head over to the website, fantasynews.cbssports.com. We got the rankings at each position to help you get your lineup set for Fantasy Week 2. This has been a special edition of Fantasy Football Today here for CBS Local Sports.